In 1587, over 100 English men, women, and children landed on Roanoke Island, ready to carve out the first permanent English colony in the New World. Just 3 years later, they were gone. The settlement was abandoned, the buildings were carefully taken down, and the people had vanished. The only clue they left was a single, mysterious word carved into a post: Croatoan. For over 400 years, this has been America's oldest, most chilling, unsolved mystery. But what if the story of the lost colony is all wrong? What if new evidence is telling us they weren't lost at all? When Governor John White finally made it back to Roanoke in 1590, after being delayed in England for 3 long years, he was expecting a happy reunion with his family. His daughter was there, and his granddaughter, Virginia Dare, the very first English child born in the Americas. Instead, he was met with an unsettling silence. The entire settlement had been dismantled. There were no bodies, no skeletons, and no signs of a fight. The defensive wall around the village was gone, which suggested an organized move, not a panicked escape. As White searched, his men found 2 clues: the letters C-R-O carved into a tree, and the full word, Croatoan, on a post at the old settlement's entrance. White knew this wasn't random. It was the name of a nearby island, now called Hatteras Island, and the Native American people who lived there. Before he had left, the colonists had agreed on a plan. If they had to move, they would carve their destination into a tree. If they were in trouble, they'd add a Maltese cross. There was no cross. This wasn't a distress signal, it was a message. But before White could sail to Croatoan Island, a brutal hurricane slammed the coast, crippling his ships and forcing his crew to give up the search and head back to England. He would never see his family again, and the fate of the Roanoke colonists passed into legend. For centuries, people have guessed at what happened. Was it a massacre, a disease, a doomed attempt to sail home? But the first real breakthrough didn't come from a history book, but from something that had been there all along: ancient trees. In the 1990s, scientists studying tree ring data from 800-year-old bald cypress trees in the area found something staggering. The Roanoke colonists had arrived in 1587 at the absolute worst time. That year kicked off the most extreme drought the region had seen in 800 years, lasting from 1587 to 1589. This wasn't just a dry spell, it was a catastrophe that hit right as the colonists were trying to survive. With limited supplies, their chances of growing food were slim to none. They had hoped to trade with local Algonquian tribes, but the drought meant those tribes were also facing starvation. This environmental disaster would have turned potential friends into rivals, fighting over the same scarce resources. To put this into perspective, the Jamestown settlement, established just 2 decades later, was hit by the driest 7-year period in 770 years. The result was horrific. Thousands of settlers died from starvation. If a larger, better supported colony like Jamestown nearly collapsed, the Roanoke colonists, facing an even worse drought, stood almost no chance on that island. They had to leave, or they would die. This climate data gives us the motive for their organized departure. So if they left, where did they go? The answer seems to have been hiding in plain sight the whole time: Croatoan. It wasn't a cryptic puzzle, but a clear signpost. The colonists were on friendly terms with the Croatoan people, whose leader, Manteo, had even traveled to England. It was the most logical place to seek help. This theory suggests the colonists packed up, dismantled their homes, and moved south to live with the Croatoan tribe on what is now Hatteras Island. For a long time, this was just a theory, but now archaeologists have found compelling physical proof. The Croatoan Archaeological Society, led by Scott Dawson, has unearthed thousands of 16th century English artifacts on Hatteras Island, mixed right in with Native American pottery in the same layers of soil. And these aren't just a few traded coins. They found pieces of English swords, guns, and everyday items like pottery from Surrey, England. Most telling of all, they found large quantities of hammer scale, tiny metal flakes that fly off during blacksmithing. Since this is a waste product and not a trade item, finding it is strong evidence of a European-style forge being used on the island for a significant time. It points to a story of assimilation, not annihilation. Later, in the early 1700s, explorer John Lawson wrote of meeting gray-eyed Native Americans on Hatteras Island who said their ancestors could talk in a book. It seems the real mystery isn't that the colonists vanished, but that for centuries nobody followed the directions they left behind. Modern archaeology is rewriting this story, turning a tale of tragedy into one of survival. But the story doesn't stop at Hatteras Island. Another incredible discovery suggests the colonists might have split up. In 2012, researchers at the British Museum were examining a 425-year-old map painted by Governor John White himself, the La Virginia Pars map. They noticed two small paper patches on it. Using imaging techniques like backlighting, they peered beneath one of the patches and found a hidden symbol. It was the outline of a fort. This hidden fort was located about 50 miles inland along the Chowan River. This matched a plan the colonists had discussed with White before he left, to move 50 miles into the Main. The symbol was likely hidden to keep the planned location secret from the Spanish, who were at war with England and looking for the colony to destroy it. Following this amazing clue, archaeologists with the First Colony Foundation began digging in Bertie County at a place they call Site X. There, they started finding more 16th century English pottery, including distinctive borderware jars and other ceramics consistent with the Roanoke colonists. The types of pottery found suggest a small group of settlers, maybe a family or two, lived there, following the original inland plan. Discoveries at a nearby Site U have added to this evidence. So what really happened? The evidence no longer points to a single simple answer, but to a complex story of survival. The so-called Lost Colony was never truly lost. When that devastating drought made life on Roanoke impossible, the colonists executed a plan. The evidence strongly suggests they broke into at least two groups. The larger group likely went south to Hatteras Island to live with the Croatoan people. The Croatoan carving was their message to White, pointing him to where the majority had gone. There, it seems they assimilated, intermarried, and their culture blended with the native community that took them in. A second, smaller group appears to have moved west, following the original plan to set up an inland settlement near the Chowan River, just as White's secret map suggested. This group was likely hoping to find better farmland away from the coastal drought. It's still possible that some of the colonists met a tragic end. Oral histories from Jamestown mention that the powerful leader Wahuwansanak, also known as Chief Powhatan, claimed to have attacked and killed a group of settlers who had moved into his territory. This could account for the inland group at Site X, or perhaps another splinter group we don't know about. But it doesn't explain the lack of bodies at Roanoke and the clear evidence of survival on Hatteras Island. The mystery of the Lost Colony of Roanoke has captivated us for centuries because it felt like a ghost story, 100 people stepping into the wilderness and simply disappearing. But the real story, pieced together from ancient trees, hidden maps, and broken pottery, is far more human and much more incredible. It's not a ghost story, it's a story of resilience, adaptation, and survival against impossible odds. The Roanoke colonists didn't vanish, they made tough choices in the face of a climate disaster. They moved, they merged, and they endured. While we may never know the fate of every single person, we can finally say with some confidence that their story didn't end in 1590. The colony was lost to English history, but its people lived on, their legacy woven into the native communities that gave them a new home.
If stories like this fascinate you, consider liking and subscribing for more lost treasures, forgotten disasters, and mysteries buried beneath history. And share your thoughts below. What do you believe really happened to the Lost Colony of Roanoke?